No one in the history of the VFL, AFL has made a bigger, longer-lasting impression from 14 games than Malcolm Brown. What is it about you that sparks so many headlines, so much controversy?
I really don't know. I've always seemed to have been in trouble, things on or off the ground over the years. And most probably the fact that I've never taken myself too seriously. But
you don't take a backward step ever, do you? I mean, if there's an issue and you've got a view about it, you're happy to express it.
Well, isn't that what all the lefties and that do every day of the week, every day of the year?
I said you're nothing political, all right?
Well, I mean, you're entitled to. I believe in people, our kids should have their own minds and their own freedom of speech, and that we should let people grow up and develop and have fun and make mistakes, and we don't sit in judgment of people as God Almighty.
Do you enjoy the notoriety?
Doesn't worry. Never think about it anymore.
Don't you?
Haven't for 30 years.
Okay. Let's talk about the footy. 14 games for Richmond in 1974, but actually you signed with Collingwood after the 1966 Hobart Carnival, didn't you?
Yeah. 66 Carnival was met Teddy Whitten.
Mm-hmm.
He did his famous handshake and shook hands and pulled me about 30 metres over his shoulder when I was a
you
kid
were 19
of 18,
then?
18 or 19.
Yeah.
And got signed up by Collingwood. I'm just trying to think of the guy's name that signed me, one of their centremen, one of the
Bill
famous...
Toomey?
Bill Toomey, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they gave me $1,000 to sign because Murray
That was a
Wiedemann,
Form 4,
Form
which
4.
then at that time bound you to that footy club for 2 years.
Yeah, and Wiedemann was my hero. I loved the way Murray Wiedemann played.
Why am
footy.
I not surprised at that?
I just think he was fabulous.
So that's post-66, so we presume it's 67. You don't appear in Melbourne until 1974 when you play with the Tigers. What happened in the interim?
Well, I came over. In Western Australia, the two big occasions and trips away were to go from Perth to the Melbourne Cup or Perth to the Grand Final.
Mm-hmm.
They were our big occasions, which you saved up all your money to come over and do one of those two things. And I came over and was going to be guest to Collingwood, and I went to the ground with my bag, and Bradley...
You had an appointment to meet someone?
Had an appointment, thought I did, and went to the ground, and nobody was there. So after an hour or two, we walked down to Victoria Parade or whatever it is, and Swabby drove past.
Alan Swab, the then Richmond secretary, yeah.
And he said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I said, "I've just signed up. I was going to." He said, "You better come with me." So he took Bradley and I up to a motel, booked us in Richmond, and said afterwards that he'd paid them back their $1,000, which I'm not too sure.
100 to 1 about that.
And joined Richmond, which was the smartest thing I ever did.
So 1974, Malcolm, you're playing for the Tigers. You play 14 games. Late in the season, something possesses that weird and wonderful mind of yours, and you throw the ball at umpire John Sutcliffe. You get reported, you get suspended, you miss the flag.
3 weeks. Got 3 weeks for throwing the ball either too hard or at the umpire. And John Sutcliffe is a good bloke.
Yep.
And I've been to lunch with him occasionally with the races and that, and I really like John. And I said to him what a wimp he was, and he said, well, if he caught it, he'd have ended up in Broken Hill. But we did.
Let's set the scene.
I don't know why. I just took a mark,
yep.
And then he didn't pay the mark or something, and then threw the ball back. And I think they'd been waiting for me because of the West Essendon Blue.
So the Windy Hill brawl earlier that year.
I think you don't get angry, you get even.
I know your mantra is look forward and not back, but that must be an eternal regret. I mean, you missed playing in an AFL premiership team.
Yeah. No, I can honestly say I sat with Ian Stewart, who was out that day. We sat on the ground and ended up at Wayne Walsh's that night at a restaurant he had down at South Melbourne. It was fabulous for the club. It was disappointing individually, but that's my own fault, and that happens in footy. And as Graham Richmond always used to say, Jesus, Cocko, you've got the crowds turning up, we've got people here, and, it's fantastic. And in the Carlton game earlier in the year, he said when Francis Burke and Royce got reported, he said to me, Jesus, Cocko, the crowds are up, the membership's up, we brought you over here to get reported, not one of our good players.
So your Richmond time ended on a sour note, there's no doubt about that.
No, it didn't. No,
well, it did. I mean, you were seen to have missed a premiership.
Yeah, that's not, but they won the premiership by 60 points.
Yeah. On that question, you were sitting with Ian Stewart on Grand Final day. You know that thing that the clubs say, you're all a part of it,
You don't feel a part of it. It's shithouse. Absolute. So you're sitting there, you feel... But it's no different to the boys that are injured. If you've played for the season and you're injured or you don't get picked, young Tom Murphy for Hawthorn, I could relate to him when 2 years in a row he didn't get picked. And it's a dreadfully... It's disappointing because all the work you've done is to play in a premiership. And so of course that aspect of it is very, very, very disappointing. But my case was my own fault.
But you were a law unto yourself, weren't you?
Well, I don't know about that. I've always been the person that, whether it be when you're lucky enough to meet Prince Charles or you run into an alcoholic drunk down in the street when you come out of a restaurant, you say hello and you treat them all the same. And I don't think position or money or anything makes anyone any different. I like people for what they are, not for what positions they are.
But I was talking about sort of social standards and accepted boundaries. I mean, they never worried you, did they?
No. No, not many things have worried me, really. The only thing I'm frightened of is my wife.
Stay with 1974 and the Windy Hill Brawl. I interviewed Royce Hart last year, and Royce said that he went to the football with you that day and you declared that you're going to start trouble. Is that true?
No, not that I could recall, but I could have flippantly made a remark like that. Look, I can honestly say, in our day of playing footy, you went out and had fun. From 2:10 or 2:20 when it started till 5 o'clock, you belted hell out of each other.
That's fun, is it?
Yeah, well, you played in front. If you got beaten, you played from the side. If you got beaten, you belted them. And then after the game, you all went into a room in Western Australia, and I'm sure they were the same here, and you had a beer with the opposition and the umpire. And we will always ask the opposition and umpires in. And as bad a reputation as people reckon I had, always had a good record with umpires off the field because as we used to say before, you treat everyone equal, but you had to win. I mean, you don't go out to play football to lose.
No, but do you win at any cost?
Absolutely.
So bashing people is acceptable,
There's two things that were unacceptable. You didn't kick a bloke on the ground and you didn't elbow him behind the play.
Okay.
All the rest, you got to remember, when we went for a mark and took a mark, we got belted behind the head every time you went for the mark. We had our arms chopped. You had blokes that cut across the ruck rover or halfback finger that cut in and dropped you all the time. And that's what's wrong with the game today, is the game in our day, we had to look after ourselves. So if a bloke, your self-preservation was first, and then if anyone hit your teammate, you're even the score.
But isn't it a game of skill rather than sort of the survival of the fittest?
Some blokes' skills was the toughness. Some was the beauty of a player that like a Royce Hart, or skills of a Dangerfield, but you had to have a balance of them all. Nowadays we have very similar. Everyone's the same with no personality off the field. They can't speak, and they've lost their individuality and play. And we've lost a lot of boys out of our game. And ruckman didn't play till they were 25 in our era. They often played. They might have got a game, but they weren't much good. The big tall ruckman till they were 23, 25.
The Windy Hill Brawl. It was a dark day in football history, wasn't it? I suspect
it was a marvellous day.
I suspect you probably did get some enjoyment out of it, but I want you to be serious for a moment.
I pissed myself laughing. It was
one
of the funniest days.
There's blokes getting jaws broken. There's police on the ground on
I got trod on by the policeman's horse.
Yeah.
In the middle of the blue.
You actually started that blue, didn't you?
Well, they say that, but I don't think that's quite true. And if you read Jim Bradley's book, Jim Bradley will say what happened was Jerker Jenkins took a mark and I stood over him and he put his hand up and went to pull my little bits and I said, now I know why they called you Jerker, and it was kind of a joke. And then
is that part true?
That's true. And we went off the ground and then John Casson was dressed up in a dressing gown and ran around.
So it's half time, right?
It's half time, the siren blew, and we come off and John's jumped in the top of me and him and I were on the ground. All the rest of it I never saw. And it was nothing too bad except for Graham Richmond got $2,000 fine and 6 months, and Parsons got rubbed out. And
Graham Richmond was, did he have a position? Was he the secretary then or not?
No. He was most probably vice president.
Okay, so he's run on the ground in his civvies and he smashed Jimmy Bradley, didn't he?
Well, I don't know. Everyone was in the fight. There was about 18. The only two that weren't there were Bartlett. Kevin, he went up the race and pinched everyone's squashes and was looking out the window because the Blues going on. But it become quite But it was, when you look back on it, you go to the Tribunal, and it was fantastic when you used to get rubbed out or reported, because you'd go back to VFL House, and then while you're waiting, I used to ring everybody in West Australia I knew that I owed phone calls to, and I'd let the league pay for the bloody thing. So I never took any of that too seriously.
This is a long time ago now. It's 40 years ago. But did you see it as a black day in footy history?
No. Okay. I mean, what the black day is when someone dies.
That's all.
And I have never seen that yet.
Okay, so anything less than death.
It's life. That's why, you see Fife get 2 weeks for accidental headbutt. The people that run the game have lost the plot.
It was too soft.
Too soft? No, I don't think the kids are soft. I think the AFL are terrified of being sued, and the football has been for 30 years been worried about being sued for things like concussion that are coming out now.
What about Malcolm Brown, the footballer?
Played every position, I think, other than maybe wing. And
so you're ruck and centre half forward primarily?
Yeah, but played full-back, centre half back, ruck in the stateside. So I suppose you'd say that you were would have maybe be able to get a game today because you could play in a variety of positions. Everyone thought I was slow, but I think John Burns at North Melbourne was about the only one that could beat us over 25 yards.
Right?
At
Burns, played with you, didn't he? Yeah.
Johnny Burns, and used to read the play a bit, I suppose. And enjoyed the challenge and the contest, and we were brought up with AVAP, like Tony Locke said, AVAP, AVAP, all Vics are pricks, and we wanted to beat Victoria, and we wanted to beat them, and when they come over on a Saturday and a Tuesday, that's all West Australia we lived for, was to beat Victoria.
So you represented the state 16 times?
Yeah, thereabouts, yeah.
You want to stand over at 23?
Yep.
Stand over the middle for the best player in the waffle? That would indicate that you're a pretty handy player.
I suppose so.
All right.
You said to me I was ever nervous. I
Yeah.
was that night because I think I was 5-4 favourite, and to go there and think, crikey, Moses, I hope I get a vote. That was most probably to have gone there that night and not got any votes would have most probably been soul destroying.
Well, you don't rate umpires anyway, do you?
Yeah, I like umpires.
Do you really?
Necessary. They're people that their wives let them out 2.5 hours a week to make all the decisions and then go home and do what they're told.
I knew I shouldn't have asked that question. 1972, you're All-Australian captain. I think you were the first non-Victorian to have that honour, weren't you?
I think so. I think so, that they'd always been Victorians, yeah. That was a great honour, and we went away with Carlton, the All-Stars, went over and played a game in Greece and a game at Kensington Oval in London. That was great fun.
What about the end-of-season clash with Carlton in Adelaide?
Yeah, well, that was...
memories of that, and Trevor Keogh and Perce Jones and a few of the others that were on the receiving end.
Yeah, well, that was one of those things that happened. Don't ask me what happened. We all... Look, the facts were we won the premiership.
Yep.
I'd said I'd stand down for Kevin Murray to come back because he was going to come back. He was my first coach in when I started in 65, and he was going to come back. And then... all hell broke loose and there was a fight and they hit a young kid, and at the end of the season Macaulay didn't play because he was in cricket side and Chadwick, and this young kid Johnson got belted.
By whom?
Gill? Was it Gill?
Yeah, Barry Gill.
Was it Barry? He might be going to kill me now. I think he was a bald-headed chap who played half-back flank, I think.
So one of your blokes has been hit in this end-of-season game.
And at half-time we went in and Bradley Smith and I said, we don't just play the ball, and if anybody does anything wrong, Bradley, you or I are going to even the score.
Okay.
And that was exactly what happened.
Then you crossed Percy Jones's path and gave him one to think about?
Yeah. And, out of all that incident, I've been up to Percy's and all that. The only one that I've never been able to have a beer with is Trevor Keogh.
You smacked Percy Jones first, and then Trevor Keogh
ended up. I don't
makes
know why
an ill-considered decision to confront you.
Yeah, he made a mistake because we were angry. Yeah.
And you actually assaulted him, didn't you?
Well, I just hit him.
Yeah, well, you punched him in the face and broke his jaw, didn't you?
Well, I don't know about broke his jaw, but we punched him in the face, absolute.
Have you crossed paths with him since?
No, I've been down to his brother's pub a few years ago and had a drink down there, but in fact I went to a sportsman's night to fill in for Sam Mitchell's old club, and he sponsors it or something, and when he heard that I'd filled in that day, he wouldn't come to the function, so he's still a bit shitty.
And do you understand that?
Oh, crikeys. If I'd worried about everyone that's robbed me, dudded me, told me lies, or insulted me over the last 30 years, I'd have no one to talk to.
I remember it was a game when you smacked Hassaman, the former Melbourne skipper and a champion player, and he's playing at East Fremantle, wasn't he?
He played for South Fremantle.
South
and
Fremantle,
they won a flag under Hassa in 70.
Yeah.
And he came over, and it bonds a bloke, Hassa, and we played a scratch match, and in those days you used to play 2 or 3 scratch matches before the season started, and I'd given him a backhander or something, and they reported me.
As you do, welcome to Perth,
reported me. So Hex Stremple came up, the football manager, secretary, and said, come with me. So he took me up on Monday morning, and I went to the doctor, Dr. Rogers, put my hand on the table, he got a scalpel, and he cut my hand open and put 5 stitches in it. So we go to the tribunal, and the tribunal, they said, did Mr Brown use his right? Yes, the umpire said. Did he hit him on the... Yes, he hit him with the right hand on this side of the face, and went on all that. And then Heck pulled my hand out and said, if you had stitches in your hand and he's unwound it, would you hit anybody? And they all agreed, no, I wouldn't.
So you willingly...
Well, I didn't willingly, but
had your hand cut open by scalpel by a doctor.
And then the next week I couldn't play the next week. And I couldn't play the next week because I got a poison arm.
That's the karma bus. That's the karma bus. I want to ask you about when you were in a later period at Richmond. You're on the staff. I remember, do you have some sort of marketing role at
Yes,
Punt
consultant.
Road?
Yep. When I came back in 90, whatever it was.
Tony Lockett decides he wants to leave St Kilda.
Yeah.
Richmond makes a big play for him. You're at the front of those negotiations.
No, nothing about that. Never heard of that before today.
You never rang St Kilda.
Never
said,
heard
I'll
of that.
get you a sponsorship and we'll donate some.
Never heard of that today. That's the first I've ever... I'd like to say that I was ahead of that. No, I can take responsibility for Maurice Rioli going to Richmond.
Maurice Rioli went to Richmond when Richmond had the best centre man in the country in Jeffrey Rains. Jeff Rains left a year later. Was that disruptive, that decision?
It was sad. It was sad. Richmond at that period, losing Cloak, Woods, Rains, was bad. Bad. And I know a lot of people blame Graham Richmond for that, and if that's the mistakes he made, he's involved in 4 premierships, so we all make mistakes. But I thought that was disappointing. But Maurice Rioli was just a fabulous player.
There's divided views about you and the Indigenous players.
Why?
Well, there's a public perception that you've said some disparaging things about.
Yeah, well, I just said what I say all the time, and I have for 30 years.
But what about if it's socially unacceptable?
Well, look, who's it unacceptable to? The boys concerned. I was supporting the 2 players not getting picked. So I don't. When I die, let them those will turn up that turn up. I don't worry about what people sit in judgment of me. I've bailed more boys out of jail and for pinching chooks and done all those things over 45 years with them, and I let them judge me as I am.
So you don't think you've been intemperate with your language about the Indigenous players? You think that we're now too sensitive, do you?
Well, I don't know. They'll tell me when they've had enough. Yeah? I mean, you know, I've grown up with Sid Jackson. I've known Sid together. I nearly got expelled from school because someone called him a discouraging name when West Perth, who we used to call the Garlic Munchers, they had a comment to Sid Jackson, and I was in my school uniform and belted a big Slav on the nose in the West Perth members stand when I was about 17.
You said something racist to Sid.
Yeah, that was bloody 1964.
Have you ever said anything racist to any of the Aboriginal boys?
I think I might have. When I said 1.25 time, I told him I'd squeeze his neck till his eyes popped out if he didn't do what he was told.
That's hardly racist, is it?
No, but people see people see you talk to a Chinese boy or an Afghanistan, you speak like that, they obviously think you're racist, and so you would speak exactly the same as you would to anybody else.
So the Garlic Munchers,
still call them the Garlic Munchers. The Italians will still call the Dagos.
You've been in the papers a lot in your time. What do you think about the way football is covered by reporters in the papers, radio and TV? Well,
I don't... It used to be once that the Alf Browns and the people like that, Jeff Christians in Perth, you could trust them and talk to them and talk tactics and they'd look about... You play someone from back and you put him up kicking for goals and they'd write articles. Nowadays it's all done through the clubs basically promoting rather than people going to watch and whatever. I don't like a lot of the stuff Caroline Wilson and Patrick Smith particularly write.
Why?
Because they sit in judgment of people, and I don't like what happened to Buddy Franklin. That the kid, for example, he's had a car accident. He's hit 4 cars, hit one, and the thing went off. Then they were inferring that he's on drugs.
What's
they won't
the thing,
say
the
that.
thing being the airbag, is that what?
Yeah, the airbag.
Okay,
They inferred, that he's on drugs, that he was drunk, that he's using his phone, he's doing.
What do you think happened then?
Well, I don't care what happened.
You don't care what happened?
Everybody's had accidents, and I'd like, what my highlight of my life would be? If one of their kids got booked for drugs or drunk driving, and get them on the front page of the paper and see the devastation it can have to the whole of the family and that kid's life when the kid is innocent and is not, and they don't give, because the people only remember the first story. They don't remember the reply, which is on page 54 at an inch thick. And that's the thing that disappoints me, the way boys get crucified today. And I am angry about the media with Campbell's issue with the Magic Million.
What ended up happening in that case? Campbell's been apprehended by the police. Was arrested, wasn't he?
Yeah. 3 charges.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they've since been
every one of them withdrawn.
How do you feel about that?
Well, you can speak to Campbell later when you do an interview with him, if ever you want to.
I have asked several times.
Well, I'm sure he will. But my attitude would be.
There he is. There he is at up on the Gold Coast.
My attitude would be.
Looks like he's had one or two there.
Look at suing the police for lies, collusion. His attitude will most probably be, I'm getting a new life in the media, get on with my life.
Do you think it's a bit of like give a dog a bad name in his case?
No, I think he deserves what he's got, a lot of those things. Yeah, Campbell's a very kind person, a very good person, but his one weakness is he's very loyal to mates.
Meaning he's got into trouble by defending his mates.
That's his own. He's gone in to help. And
well, talking about mates, did he not have an altercation with a teammate?
Yeah, it was most probably a good thing. The kid's played good footy ever since. It should happen too. You should.
Is that the way to fix him up? Smack him.
Well,
in the
yeah,
mouth?
but look, he's played pretty good footy this year. It should have happened 3 years ago. He is a Melbourne Grammar boy too. Scotch boys are allowed to do that to Melbourne Grammar.
Do you think he's been unlucky, Campbell?
No.
Do you think? With the bad press he's had?
No,
or has he deserved it?
Well, you're unlucky because your son's most probably done the same thing. So and not been caught. So I mean, it's bad luck, but that's life. And I mean, he's very lucky to play for a boy that Richmond said was too slow, too small, and would never get a game. To play 200 plus games, to play for Australia, to be picked in the Victorian side, to be picked All Australian, runner up in a fairest and best, play in the Premiership. Christ, I wish it happened to me.
Yeah, true. His footy record's good. When Campbell got into trouble at the Magic Millions, I think this is the details, I understand it. Some camera crews from a couple of the free-to-air stations, 7 and 10, descended upon your place and wanted some comment. And you asked them in no uncertain terms to leave you alone.
No, that's not true. Channel 7 and Channel 9 always ring to ask if would you do an interview, or they ring the front doorbell. I was getting out of a caneway.
At the back of your house?
At the back of my house, and pressed my button for the clicker to come down. And the clicker didn't come down. I pressed it again and it didn't come down. I got out and I saw this beam, this black, do you remember I just got out of the car and I saw 2 pickets there and I was going to pick them up and I thought, shit, someone's going to maybe rob me, whatever. And I was going to pick a picket up and give them a belt with it. And it turned out a young girl asked a question about Campbell.
A reporter?
A reporter.
Yep.
And you just saw the reporter with the camera.
Yep.
And I asked them discreetly...
discreetly?
Yeah, F off.
When does a 4-letter word come under the heading of discreet?
Well, the facts are women want to be treated equal. They all want equal pay, they want equal rights. That's exactly what I'd have said to a bloke. So if I'd have said that to a bloke, why should I have any remorse about saying it? And she was very polite at the end. She was very lovely. But if she'd have got hit with a picket, I'd have been accused of being a basher and all this sort of stuff in your own backyard, in your own garage, and you didn't have the courtesy to knock on the front door.
Okay, I accept that, but you did use the 2 worst words in the language.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I would say to you.
Did you get in touch with her employer?
I wrote a letter to the chairman and
of Channel 10.
Yeah, and wrote to their news editor that they should teach their staff some manners, and never got a reply. And then I sent it out to 180 people, and got responded to by 3 different people very quickly.
So, Malcolm, when you get into trouble, episode number 500, what does your wife Kay say?
Oh, when I got into trouble for the Aboriginal comment from in the Etihad Stadium, we were going up to Queensland, so she stayed home.
Because of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, totally. When I only had 2 people that have given me a speech about the comments in the garage. One was her and the other was my daughter, who swears more than me, I think. But anyway.
Do you think that the controversy surrounding your career on and off the field diminishes your standing as a footballer, and do you care?
Well, you know, I'm very lucky, Michael. I come from Darren, where Buddy Franklin comes from. I'm a little country boy that's been lucky enough.
Not so little.
Well, not now. Gee, I've got another diet. Come to Perth, played for East Perth, coached 2 premierships, met EJ Whitten, met Graham Richmond, met Alan Swab, met Ronald Dale Barassi, met Roy Higgins. I think I've had an absolute fantastic life.
Do you have any regrets?
Most probably not coming to Melbourne when I was 23 instead of coaching. Most probably, but I mightn't have lasted much longer anyway.
No, but there's a difference. You were here at 27, weren't you?
27, yeah. Most probably would have. And I mean, but the thing that with Richmond is that, you know, blokes like Barry Richardson and Barmy and Tommy Hafey, Sheedy, you know, I lived with Sheedy, as you know, flattered with him. We still see each other.
Yeah.
Tommy, you know, I mean, Tommy Hafey is the most amazing person at working at keeping his team and his players together. Every year having a function at Christmas and invites blokes that he finds in the street somewhere that haven't been for years. That era of Richmond, that year of Richmond was most probably the greatest lesson and the greatest influence on my life.
When you were reported for throwing the ball at John Sutcliffe, do you remember what Tommy said to you? Because it was lateness. It's on the eve of the finals.
He's thrilled because he would have thought, shit, Barry Richardson's going to play, and he plays for least. I don't know, but I know Barry Richardson was very thankful, and he's a fabulous bloke, Barry too. I mean, I was disappointed because Tommy was very good to me. And he used to say to me as we ran around the botanical gardens, Whale, me and Barmy would be down the back, and he'd run up and he'd go up and back, he'd say, how can anyone run so slow? And I said, well, I'm buggered if I know. We've started together, we haven't stopped, and I can't work out how we get so far back.
Brownie, it's always been fun talking to you, even when I've been on the receiving end of one of your sprays. Been a very, very colourful career. A lot of it you're entitled to be very proud of. So thanks for your time and good luck.
Thanks, Michael.
This has been a Fox Footy production for Fox Sports.